Hello students, welcome to this video session on module 1. It deals with vector calculus. In order to discuss the content of this particular model, first of all let us recall some of the things what you have learnt at the 10 plus 2 level in vector algebra. Okay, let us start with the basic concepts. First one, let us know what is a scalar. As we know, scalar is a physical quantity which has only magnitude but no direction. For example, if you take mass, density, temperature, etc., these quantities possess only magnitude but no direction. Such quantities are referred as scalars. On the other hand, the physical quantities which have both magnitude and direction, they are called vectors. For example, if you take displacement, if you take velocity, if you take force, etc., these physical quantities possess both magnitude as well as direction. Such quantities are called as vector quantities, or simply vectors we can call them as. Now, again, we have to familiar with some of the important concepts, starting with what is a position vector. Suppose there is a point in a two-dimensional space and a line segment which joining the given point with the origin is called as position vector, and generally it is denoted by r bar, and an expression for r bar is given by, that is r bar equal to xi plus yj. This is in case of two dimension where r and j refers the unit vectors along x-axis and y-axis respectively. Suppose the same thing, if you have a point p, x, y, z in space, then the position vector of this point p is given by r bar equal to xi plus yj plus zk, because in space means we come across with three coordinates, that is one is x coordinate, one is y coordinate, and one is z coordinates. Therefore, in this case, an expression for the position vector r bar is given by xi plus yj plus zk. Suppose these x, y, z are functions of a variable t, or means if they depend on a time factor t, then this position vector r bar can also be written as x of t into I plus y of t into j plus z of t into k, indicating that x, y, z are the functions of a parameter t. As t changes, the position of a point changes accordingly. That position vector also gives the different values. That will be an expression for position vector in case of three dimension. Now let us recall what is magnitude of a vector. Suppose if you have a vector, say capital A bar equal to A1I plus A2J plus A3K, be any vector, then the magnitude of the vector A bar is denoted as absolute value of A bar and is given by, that is A1 square plus A2 square plus A3 square. Whenever we say the vector capital A bar equal to A1I plus A2J plus A3K, these A1, A2, A3 are called as components of the vector capital A bar, or simply components of a vector A. And now the magnitude of the vector A is the square root of sum of the squares of its components, because A1, A2, A3 are the components of A. Therefore, magnitude of A is given by, that is square root of sum of the squares of the components, namely A1, A2, A3. Therefore, it is given by square root of A1 square plus A2 square plus A3 square. Now, let us define what is unit vector. Suppose we have a vector, say A bar equals to A1I plus A2J plus A3K, where A1, A2, A3 are the components of the vector A, and I, J, K are the unit vectors along the coordinate axis X, Y, and Z respectively. Suppose it represents any vector, then the unit vector in the direction of A bar is denoted as A cap, and an expression for A cap is given by A cap equal to the given vector divided by its magnitude. That will be a1I plus a2j plus a3k. It is a given vector and its magnitude is given by, that is, square root of sum of the squares of its components, namely a1, a2, a3. That's why it is given by a cap equals to a1I plus a2j plus a3k divided by square root of a1 square plus a2 square plus a3 square. And one more important thing, you have to note that the magnitude of a unit vector is always 1. That's why we can write the magnitude, that is modulus of a cap equals to 1. That is, the magnitude of a unit vector is always 1. Now let us go with some things which are very important with respect to vectors. One is called dot product, another is called as cross product. Now first let us consider the dot product. Let a bar, that is a capital A bar, equals to a1I plus a2j plus a3k, and b bar equals to b1I plus b2j plus b3k, where a1, a2, a3 are the components of the vector A, and b1, b2, b3 are the components of the vector B, and I, j, k are the unit vectors along the coordinate axis. Suppose if you have two vectors like this, and suppose theta is the angle between these two curves, and n cap, one more vector, that is n cap is the unit vector perpendicular to both the vectors A as well as B. First one, A bar and B bar are the two vectors, and theta is the angle between these two vectors, and n cap is a vector, or in particular is a unit vector perpendicular to both the vectors. Then the dot product between the two vectors A and B is denoted as A bar dot B bar. That is dot product. That is A bar dot B bar, and that is given by A1 B1 plus A2 B2 plus A3 B3. Means it is the product sum of the respective components, that is first component into first component of A into first component of B plus second component of A into second component of B plus third component of A into third component of B. Therefore it is given as A1 B1 plus A2 B2 plus A3 B3, and it is also be given by, that is, magnitude of A bar into magnitude of B bar into cos of the angle between the two vectors, that is cos theta. Now let us call this one as equation 1, and this particular thing is referred as dot product. And once you look at this, this dot product is free from I, j, k, means it is free from the vectors, therefore it represents a scalar quantity. Therefore dot product is always a scalar quantity. That is one more thing to keep in mind. Now the cross product of the two vectors A and B is given by, that is, it is denoted as A bar cross B bar, and it is a determinant whose first row is the unit vectors along the coordinate axis, namely I, j, k, and the second row represents the components of the first vector, that is A bar, and third row represents the components of the second vector B bar. That is, A bar cross B bar is defined as I, j, k. It is the determinant of where the first row is I, j, k. The second row is the components of the first vector A bar, that is A1, A2, A3. And the third row is the components of the second vector, namely B bar, that is B1, B2, B3. And is also given by, that is, magnitude of A bar into magnitude of B bar into sine theta into n cap. Now let us call this one as equation 2. As if you expand this one, it will contain the vectors, unit vectors I, j, k. Therefore, this cross product is always a vector quantity, whereas dot product is a scalar quantity. That will be one thing you have to remember. Suppose this is a vector A bar and this is a vector B bar, and theta is the angle between the two curves, and this n cap is a unit vector perpendicular to both the vectors A bar and B bar. And whenever the two vectors are perpendicular to each other, that means whenever the vectors are perpendicular, that indicates the angle between them is pi by 2. That is theta is pi by 2. Using this in equation 1, that is, if I take theta equal to pi by 2, then this becomes A bar dot B bar, that's equal to magnitude of A into magnitude of B into cos of, since they are perpendicular, the angle between them is pi by 2. Therefore, if I take theta equal to pi by 2, and we know that cos pi by 2 is 0, 0 into something is 0. In this case, we find a bar dot b bar equals to 0 because of the fact that the cos of the angle pi by 2 is 0. From this, we conclude one important thing, that whenever the vectors are perpendicular to each other, their dot product reduces to 0. That's why we have written, when the two vectors are perpendicular, then their dot product is 0. Okay, next let us go for two important concepts. That is, one is called scalar point function and one more called vector point function. Suppose if you take any region in a space, or if you consider any part of a surface, suppose at each point on this in the space or on a surface, if there exists a scalar pi, then that pi is called a scalar point function, and the region is called as scalar field. Means, if you take any point in a certain region, if you find a scalar, that is pi of xyz, then that pi is called a scalar point function, and the region R is going to be called as scalar field, we can call it as. And some of the examples of scalar field are, that is a scalar function R, that is pi of xyz equal to x square plus y square plus z square, pi of xyz equals to xy plus yz plus zx, and pi of xyz equal to x square y square z square. These represents the mathematical functional formats. Once you think of physical example, actually what is a scalar point function, and what is that scalar field. For example, if you take a heated bar, okay, so, and if you take any point on the heated bar, definitely you are going to find some temperature at that point, and that point is going to be called as a scalar point, and the corresponding field is called as scalar field. And at each point on the bar, you are going to find some scalar, and that entire bar is referred as scalar field, we can refer it as. In the same fashion, we can define vector point function also. Suppose in a certain region, at every point in that region, if you find a vector function, or if you find a vector, okay, for example, a bar, xyz. Suppose if we find a vector at each point in a certain region, then that vector a bar is called as vector point function, and that region is called as vector field, we can say it as. In earlier case, at each point we find a scalar, and in this case, at each point we find a vector. Such a region is called as vector field, and that vector is going to be called as vector point function, we call it as. And an example, a bar equal to x square I plus y square j plus z square k, and another one is a bar equal to x y square into I plus y z square into j plus x z square into k. For example, these are mathematical written examples. Suppose if you want to know some physical examples, suppose if you consider motion or velocity of a fluid in a pipe. Suppose think that a fluid is moving in a pipe. If you take any point in that pipe, you are going to find certain speed of a fluid, that is called velocity, and it has certain direction. That's why it represents a vector quantity. Similarly, another example we can take it as gravitational force. At each point, okay, in a space, if you take a certain point, definitely that represents a vector quantity. Therefore, gravitational force is also an example of vector point function, we can say. See, these what we have discussed so far, right from the beginning. What is scalar, what is vector, what is position vector, and what is magnitude of a vector, what is a unit vector, what is a dot and cross product, what is a scalar and a vector point function. These all are very, very essential to carry out our next discussion, which starts with vector differential operator. Now let us discuss what is this vector differential operator, and this is a basic component which is required to discuss the further topics of vector calculus. The vector differential operator is denoted by the Greek letter del and is defined as del equal to dou by dou x into I plus dou by dou y into j plus dou by dou z into k, where dou by dou x represents the partial derivative with respect to x, this is partial derivative with respect to y, this is partial derivative with respect to z, and I, j, k are the unit vectors along the coordinate axis. Once we are familiar with this vector differential operator del, we can define three important concepts of vector calculus. One is called as gradient of a scalar function, next one is called as divergence, and one more is curve. First, let us consider what is gradient. Let pi of xyz be any scalar function. Then the gradient of a function pi is denoted as grade pi and is defined as grade pi is nothing but it is denoted as del pi. Del is nothing but dou by dou x into I plus dou by dou y into j plus dou by dou z into k, and it has to be operated by a scalar pi. When this pi is operated on each of the terms of this operator del, we can write it as dou pi by dou x into I plus dou pi by dou y into j plus dou pi by dou z into k. And we can observe the vectors here. That's why this grade pi is going to be a vector quantity. And dou pi by dou x represents the partial derivative of pi with respect to x, and dou pi by dou y represents the partial derivative of pi with respect to y, and dou pi by dou z represents partial derivative of pi with respect to z. And now one important thing we have to discuss about the geometrical meaning of a gradient, and that can be discussed in the form of one important theorem. That theorem states if pi of xyz is a scalar function, then gradient of pi is a vector. Already we have said it is a vector, and this vector is normal to the surface pi of xyz equals to c. And why we have to call this one as a surface, as we know that a function in two independent variables represent a curve, whereas the function in three independent variable represents a surface. That's why pi of xyz equal to c represents a surface. Now in order to prove this, there are some simple steps. Let us discuss how the proof flows. Let pi of xyz equals to c be a surface and pxyz be any point on it. And what is marked here, okay, it's some curve and that represent a surface, and this particular point, that is p, is any point on the surface, and r bar is a position vector of the point p. This is a surface, this is point p, and r bar is a position vector of the point p. And let us write r bar as, that is x of t into I plus y of t into j plus z of t into k, because since point P is a function of the time t, that's why as time changes, the position of the point changes accordingly. That position of a vector also go on changes. That's why this position vector is a function of t. That's why we can write r bar equal to x of t into I plus y of t into j plus z of t into k. When we differentiate this r bar with respect to t, we can write dr by dt equals to dx by dt into I plus dy by dt into j plus dz by dt into k, because x, y, z are functions of t. That's why we can write like this. And dr by dt represents a velocity vector from basic vector calculus, and this velocity vector is always along the tangent to the surface at the point p. Therefore, we have written that r bar is a velocity vector, and a velocity vector which is along the tangent to the surface at p. That's why we have taken the vector dr by dt along the tangent to the surface at the point p that we have drawn here. Now we know the definition of gradient of pi, that is del pi is given by, as you have defined here, that is dou pi by dou x into I plus dou pi by dou y into j plus dou pi by dou z into k. Now, if we consider the dot product of dr by dt into del pi, let us see what both, because both are vectors. Now let us consider the dot product between these two, del pi and dr by dt, and we know that dot product is nothing but the sum of the product of the respective components of the two vectors. First, let us multiply the first component, that is dou pi by dou x into dx by dt plus dou pi by dou y into dy by dt plus dou pi by dou z into dz by dt. Because if a bar and b bar are the two vectors with components a1, a2, a3 and b1, b2, b3, and we have defined the dot product as a1, b1 plus a2, b2 plus a3, b3, that represents it is the product sum of respective components. That's why here we have written the product sum of respective components of del pi as well as dr by dt. Now let us take it as equation 1. And now let us consider the surface, that is pi of xyz equal to c, where xyz are the functions of t. And if I differentiate this pi with respect to t, it is denoted as d pi by dt. Since RHS is constant, derivative of a constant becomes 0. Now let us refer this one as some reference as a. And we know that pi is a function of xyz, and here we have written xyz, they are the functions of t. That means pi is a function of xyz and each of these xyz are functions of t, then that pi becomes a composite function of t. Then we can find the derivative of pi with respect to t, okay, using the chain rule, that is given by dou pi by dou x into dx by dt plus dou pi by dou y into dy by dt plus dou pi by dou z into dz by dt. And here, instead of dou x by dou t, we are writing dx by dt because x, y, z are the functions of a single variable t. Suppose these x, y, z are functions of more than one variable, then instead of dx by dt, would have written dou x by dou t. Since here x, y, z are the functions of a single variable t, using the chain rule, we can write d pi by dt equals to dou pi by dou x into dx by dt plus dou pi by dou y into dy by dt plus dou pi by dou z into dz by dt. Now, if you take an expression for d pi by dt equal to 0, then a reduces to, that is in its place, if I replace this, we get dou pi by dou x into dx by dt plus dou pi by dou y into dy by dt plus dou pi by dou z into dz by dt equals to, that becomes 0. Now let us take this one as equation 2. Now here the LHS of equation 2 is 0, and that is nothing but RHS of equation 1. Now if I use equation 2 in 1, we can write that, that is del pi into dr by dt equals to 0, because here RHS of 1 is nothing but LHS of 2 and its value is 0. Therefore, if I take its value as 0, we are going to get this one. And we have given one important note when you have defined dot product, that is when two vectors are perpendicular, their dot product is 0, or whenever the dot product is 0, conversely we can claim that the two vectors are independent. That's why here we can say that because that dot product is 0, we claim the two vectors are perpendicular. Since dr by dt, that is a velocity vector which is along the tangent to the surface at the point P, therefore we conclude that since this is a vector which is along the tangent, and this is also vector which is perpendicular to this, means which is perpendicular to the tangent. Any line which is perpendicular to the tangent is called normal. Therefore, we can claim that del pi is along the normal to the surface at the point P. That's why here we have made a conclusion that this is the tangent vector, that is dr by dt. And since del pi is perpendicular to this, means this is in this direction. Therefore, perpendicular to the tangent, that is called normal. That's why we can conclude that del pi is a vector normal to the surface at the point P. This is a tangent, a line perpendicular to the tangent is called normal. That's why del pi is a vector which is along the normal to the surface at the point P, we can call. That's why that is the required proof we say. Now, once we define this one, that is uh, what we can as del pi, that is gradient of pi. Suppose if I denote del pi as n bar, suppose if I denote that one vector by n bar, then the unit vector of n bar is denoted by n cap. Okay, and by the basic definition of n cap, it is given by n bar divided by magnitude of n bar. Since n bar is del pi divided by magnitude of del pi, and this particular thing is called as unit normal vector, because as we know del pi is along the normal, and a vector, a unit vector in the direction of normal is generated as n cap and is given by del pi divided by magnitude of del pi and is called as unit normal vector. Means it is a unit vector in the direction of normal to the surface. That's one. Now with this, suppose if you want to find the angle between the two surfaces, and if theta is the angle between the two surfaces, then the angle between the two surfaces is defined as the angle between the two normals at their point of intersection. Just from geometry we can recall, if you want to define angle between two curves, we say that the angle between two curves is the angle between the two tangents drawn at their point of intersection. In the similar fashion, instead of curves, if you find surfaces, that angle between the two surfaces is defined as the angle between the two normals drawn at their point of intersection. Suppose if you have pi of xyz equals to c1, that is pi 1 of xyz equal to c1 is one surface, and pi 2 of xyz equal to c2 if it is another surface, then the angle between these two surfaces is given by just that is cos theta equals to del pi 1 into del pi 2 divided by magnitude of del pi 1 into magnitude of del pi 2. Because as we know, del pi 1 is along the normal and this del pi 2 is the along the normal to the second surface. The angle between those two normals is given by normals. So they are also vectors. As we know, suppose if a bar and b bar are the two vectors, the angle between the two vectors is given by cos theta equal to a bar into b bar divided by magnitude of a bar into magnitude of b bar. That's why using this basic concept of angle between two vectors, we can say that cos theta is given by del pi 1 into del pi 2 divided by magnitude of del pi 1 into magnitude of del pi 2. This is all about angle between the two surfaces. Now there is one more concept we have to discuss, that is called directional derivative. And it is defined like this. Suppose pi of xyz be any scalar function and d bar is any given vector. Then the dot product of del pi into, sorry, dot product of del pi and unit vector along the given vector, that is d bar, that is d cap. Therefore, del pi dot d cap, where d cap is given by the given vector d bar divided by its magnitude, and this is going to be called as directional derivative of pi in the direction of d bar. That's why this the dot product of del pi and that d cap, where d cap is the unit vector along d bar. The dot product of these two will represents the directional derivative of pi in the given direction d bar. And from the basic definition of dot product we have, that is del pi dot d cap is given by magnitude of d del pi into magnitude of d cap into cos theta. Okay, and now this one equals to, that is del pi dot d cap equals to del pi into cos theta, because d cap is a unit vector and the magnitude of the unit vector is always 1. Now the maximum value of del pi dot d cap depending on the value of cos theta. Therefore we say that the maximum value of del pi dot d cap is maximum when cos theta is maximum, because this magnitude of del pi is some constant. That's why the maximum value of this will depends on the maximum value of this. And we know that the maximum value of cos theta is 1. Therefore, we can say that del pi dot d cap is maximum when cos theta is 1. Therefore, this equation 1 reduces to, that is this equation 1 reduces to del pi dot d cap is maximum, and its value is going to be, that is magnitude of del pi as cos theta is 1. And this is nothing but we are going to call it as directional derivative. Therefore, we say that the maximum value of the directional derivative is given by magnitude of del pi, and this is along the direction of del pi. The maximum value of the directional derivative is del pi, magnitude of del pi, and is along the vector del pi. This is one important result. Just if we remember, that is how we are going to define directional derivative, that is enough to solve the examples. And we have to remember when that directional derivative is maximum and what is its maximum value. And now the directional derivative of a scalar pi in a given direction d bar is nothing but the dot product of del pi and d cap, unit vector in that direction. That we have to keep in mind. Now there is one more important concept, that is called divergence. If f bar is given by f1i plus f2j plus f3k, where f1, f2, f3 are the components of f and ijk are the unit vectors along the coordinate axis, be any vector function where f1, f2, f3 are functions of x, y, z, then the divergence of f bar is denoted by div of f bar, means divergence of f bar, and is defined as divergence of a vector f bar is nothing but the dot product between del and the given vector. It is given by the dot product between the operator del and the given vector. That is divergence of f bar equal to del. The operator is given by dou by dou x into I plus dou by dou y into j plus dou by dou z into k into the given vector, that is f1 into I plus f2 into j plus f3 into k. The dot product between these two, when we operate that, it is given by the product of the components of corresponding vectors, that is dou f by dou f1 upon dou x plus dou f2 upon dou y plus dou f3 upon dou z. And this particular quantity is free from ijk, means vectors. That's why the divergence of any vector always seems to be a scalar quantity. That is, it is given by we have to differentiate the first component of the vector with respect to x plus the second component of f with respect to y plus the third component of f with respect to z, and it is free from ijk. That's why it is going to be a scalar quantity. And using the definition of divergence of a vector, okay, one important definitions we can give when to call the given vector as solenoidal vector. A given vector f bar is said to be solenoidal whenever the divergence of a vector is 0. It is, if divergence of f bar is 0, then the vector f bar is called as solenoidal vector, we can call. And after divergence, one more important concept, that is going to be called as curl, we have to define. Let f equals to f1i plus f2j plus f3k be any vector point function where f1, f2, f3 are the components of f and which are the functions of x, y, z. Then the curl of the vector f bar is defined as follows. Therefore, curl of f bar is the cross product between del and f bar. And we already know how to define the cross product of two vectors, because this also vector, this also vector, and it is equals to determinant whose first row represents the unit vectors along the coordinate system, that is I, j, k, and the second row represents the component of the first vector, that is del. The components of del are dou by dou x, dou by dou y, dou by dou z, and the third row represents the components of the second vector. They are nothing but your f1, f2, f3. Therefore, curl of f bar is given by del cross f bar. It is a determinant whose first rows are ijk, whose second rows are the components of del, namely dou by dou x, dou by dou y, dou by dou z, and the third row represents the components of f bar, that is f1, f2, and f3. Now, based on the definition of a curl of a function, a vector function, there are some note we can observe. That is the first one. A vector f bar is said to be irrotational. That is very one important concept. It will be used most of the times in some of the subjects of mechanical and electrical. That is irrotational, just like fluid mechanics. And one more thing, that is fluid mechanics in mechanical department, and when we come across with the field theory in electrical and electronics department, we are going to use this concept frequently. That is, a vector f bar is said to be irrotational if curl of that vector is going to be 0. That's why we conclude that whenever a curl of a vector is 0, then that vector is called irrotational. And if an irrotational vector field, okay, is also called as conservative field or potential field, we can call. And one more thing, if f bar is an irrotational vector, then there exists a scalar function phi of xyz such that del phi equals to f bar, then that pi is called scalar potential of f bar. And this is very important, and we're supposed to solve some examples on this third node. Let us say one more time. If f bar is an irrotational vector, then there exists a scalar function phi of xyz such that del phi equals to f bar. Del phi means gradient of phi equals to f bar. Then that phi is called scalar potential of f bar. And these are some of the basic concepts what we have recalled from PUC2, and some of the content of the spectral calculus we have discussed. In our next video, let us solve some example. Let us discuss some examples on the topics what we have discussed in this particular session. Thank you.